All right, we are back, and this is the latest project that just rolled in. '69 Caprice. Has a lot of similarities to the '69 Impala SS convertible that you may have seen in a previous video. But obviously this car has a roof and a trunk lid that just seems like it goes on forever. Got a 4-speed in this car. All the mechanical work and actually all the work you see, car being in primer and so on, is all performed by the customer. We got a 383 with the Holley Sniper fuel injection system as well. Air conditioning system all freshened up. Part of the Sniper system there. And all the systems on this car have all been refurbished quite well. This engine bay is... I might have to hire this guy because he does pretty nice work. He installed the actuators for the hideaway headlights, vacuum powered hideaway headlights, which most people seem to get away from vacuum, but some people want to live dangerously. But overall the work, all this work leading up to what I'm going to do is very nice. Now it's just a matter of keeping it all clean and not making a mess of anything. Dashboard all painted. All looking really good. Take a quick look inside the trunk. Turn the key. Trunk's a little dusty and dirty, but it's all painted black really nicely. Be a nice base for the Zolatone splatter paint, which I also did previously on the Impala convertible. So that's what we'll get back here. Be pulling this bumper off, and that'll be going out for re-chroming. Not a terrible bumper, but not good enough for what this car is going to look like. This would not look good once all the paint is fresh. It might look good when with the old paint on it. It might look good when the primer's on it, but you put the nice paint on it with a deep gloss, and then you put this next to it, and it just ruins the whole thing. Those are some of the basics. The panel alignment on the car is decent. There's some things I've already seen that I'm gonna try and tune up. Starting with the door alignment here isn't as good as I would like it to be. Minor tweaks, we can get that straightened out. The fender and door alignment isn't the best either. Just a little high. The hood has some issues too. But that's the reason why the car came here. Customer got it so far, and we'll put the little tweaks on it to get it just right. It looks as though the hood here is just out. You might not be able to see it with the camera, but the hood is out from the fender, maybe an 1/8 of an inch or so. But once you go back with the hood that little bit, this gap will automatically get better, because as the hood goes backwards, it'll essentially move to what would be the vehicle's right as well, and it'll tighten this gap up here, as well as making this perfectly flush. And when you move that side back, you see how tight this is here. We have about 3/16 back there, and we're basically touching here. So when that corner over there goes backwards, this essentially moves to what would be the vehicle's right, and this gap will open up a little bit more. Again, no big deal. That's why the car is here. Again, same thing here. The fender is just a tad high compared to the door. I'll get that. I think there's some shims up on top of the fender. Get those checked out. See if I can get that down a little bit to get this. Essentially, you want to get this center body line right down the, perfectly aligned. Obviously, you want to get this surface, aligned perfectly. We're just a fuzz high there. We also have what looks through like a little burn through on the door. Have to weld that closed. It's not really any welding work on this car. Most of that has been done. I think the other door had, the other door had a little bit of a something here. I'll have to weld that. And then this rocker, I think the rocker was damaged. I think that's why this is cut out like that, and it's kind of wonky down there. So I don't know if I can get this in the camera, but this down here is not the best. So I'm gonna cut this out of here and make a new piece to go all the way down and make this edge look like factory again. That's the extent of the welding work. Again, the underside of this car, even everything, all things considered, everything looks really good. I may have to hire this man to do some work here. He does nice work. So that's where we're going to start. Now the car it's in epoxy primer. And there's some obvious, again, it might be hard to see on the camera, but there's some obvious work that has to be done body work wise on this car. The quarters were original quarters from another car and then put onto this car, and I think from wear and tear and age, they're in the condition they're in. This one on the left side looks pretty nice, and of course we got some dents and damage in the door there. No big deal. Couple little spots right there. Again, nothing too major. This quarter is going to need a little more attention. Again, it's kind of hard to see. This door's very nice. Not a lot of real dents or damage. The roof looks really, really good too. As does the deck lid, but you know, don't be fooled. Everything always looks good in primer. So you start running your hands across it, and then you might have a different opinion of how it all feels, but overall this doesn't feel terrible, which leads me to where we're going with this. What we'll end up doing is, once I remove the bumper, I'll remove the rear valance there and the front valance, take that off. I'll leave the car altogether the way it is now and do the little welding spots and adjustments that I just explained. Do all that stuff. Then I'll sand all this epoxy with like a 180 grit paper, and then I'll put about probably 4 good coats of sanding primer on this. And I'll start blocking it, and I'll get that phone call later. And by doing that, you save yourself a lot of time, as opposed to, you know, trying to do plastic work on something to get it perfectly straight. Put some primer on it, and then you got a nice foundation to sand to get it nice and straight, nice and even. And then whatever's left from that, you can find that much easier, and you do a lot less plastic work in the end. Because of course nobody wants body filler on their cars, even though every car out there, if it looks like a mirror, it has body filler on it. Sorry to break the news to everybody, but that's the way it is. Oop, you got another little break there. I'll have to weld that closed. And then of course this front end of this hood is a little banged up. Gotta fix that. I think the hood's a little high back here, but also that could be from the hood not having a stopper in the front, because when the hood goes down in the front, it'll pivot and it'll be high in the back. So for now, I'll just put a bolt on the rad support to use as a stop to stop the hood from going down too far, and I'll double check this hood adjustment. But overall, the hood adjustment isn't too critical right now. The gaps are more important than anything else. So there's what we're starting with. All right, stay tuned for more. All right, so I had said about getting started pulling the bumper. Well, what I noticed was these two bolts that hold the rear valance, they were not in. This was just kind of like dangling in the wind. The bolts on the ends were in, And the other thing I noticed about that was that they didn't marry up very nice. As you can see, they marry up pretty nice now, but when I tried to get these to bolt up, this was really out of whack. It's still a little uneven. It's tighter on this side than it is on that side, but our lineups on the ends are good. So this side, the right side of the car, there's a hole in the quarter inside here with a little flat bracket on it that the bolt goes through. This side's perfect. This side over here, actually, you can't see it. Down in there, you can kind of see where the valance marries up to the car. Right here, that hole was completely wrong. These, again, as I said earlier, these quarters were put on, and that piece was just not in the right spot. It was off a little bit. So the other thing is that I notice is these valances always crack right inside where this corner is here. They crack on the top flange. So I also welded those correct after I made sure that the bend here was correct, because they break most of the time from getting hit and so forth, and they split open. So if they're split open, that might mean this bend is open too much, and that's why it's not lining up. So I made sure I bolted the piece up correctly before I welded that part, because once you weld that, you're not going to bend it anymore. This is very heavy steel. This isn't like quarter panel steel. This is much thicker gauge metal. And for any of you people out there that know or have worked on these old cars, these valances like this, this one is a little thicker than normal. Sometimes they're even, the front valances are the ones I'm thinking of, I believe, that are really like 16 or 14 gauge. They're really heavy, but they're in the front. But anyway, when you have this corner welded, you're not going to just flex it. I mean, steel doesn't just flex like that. It'll end up breaking again or bending in another spot. But that was about 2 hours of my life this morning, just getting this thing, because the issue, the reason I had to do this now instead of pulling the bumper is because if it means that the valance bolts to the bumper, you need those two bolts as a guide to tell you where your ends go. So if you lose the bumper and now you try and fit this, well, now you're just have to use your imagination to where it's going to fall. But where the holes were with bolts in the valance, those holes in the valance weren't even coming close to where the bumper holes were. And like I said, it's still like the valance should go to the vehicle's left a little bit, but based on my ends, it's going to stay where it's at because the ends are perfect. And here again, once your license plate's on and so on, you lose that little bit, and you know, the ends are much more important to be seen than than the center. So that's, now that that is squared away, now for sure the bumper can come off. Another thing I noticed was these corners of the quarter. I got some welding work to do there. And here, this is split or something's going on there. So I'm gonna put some weld on that and grind that up a little bit and weld it and make sure that's all safe and sound, and that'll be easier to do when the bumper's out of the way. But that's, wanted to share this little tidbit, because these are the kind of things that you can't plan for, you can't estimate for, because you never know exactly what you're gonna run into and what exactly it's gonna take to. And the other thing I did over here on the same subject is, once I had the bolt in the valance where it's supposed to be, I then closed up the old hole and tightened up the hole that I'm using for the bolt, just so that, you know, when you look at this from the underside, you don't see a whole bunch of holes, or you don't see a big ugly egg-shaped hole. Plus, when you take this off, you only have one hole to put the bolt through, so that's where it belongs. So all those little things, between tuning up the cracks on the valance and getting everything where it's supposed to be, all that stuff takes a little bit of time, and in the end, it, you know, can add up to a percentage of your day. And at the end of the day, it doesn't always seem like you got very far, but a lot got done. So let's move on with tuning up some of these cracks in the panels and so on and so forth, and keep moving. Okay, walking around, got the little welding issues squared away. Edge of my hood all tuned up. Of course, you saw the progress of the rocker panel repair. That's all fixed up. Pretty basic piece to make. Of course, having the proper equipment like a brake really helps. And some experience doing it also helps. Got my edge of my door fixed. So next thing we're going to go on to is going to be tuning up this panel alignment around this car. Not much to do overall. but has to be done before we prime this car and start blocking it and getting things straight. But that was the beginning of this project. Pretty basic stuff. Again, every project's a little bit different because every project usually comes in a different phase. This project, a lot of the dirty work has already been done. I don't know if I specified earlier, but this is epoxy primer that's on this car. This car was completely stripped on the exterior to bare metal, which is where you always want to start with any of these restorations. You don't want to go over 20, 30, 40-year-old layers of paint and so forth. So I'm going to get on to some panel alignment, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.